Gotta get ready. Gotta go live. I ain't got no goddamn juice. That's ASMR for you.
Man. No, I don't think so. Yeah, people on TikTok, they be doing everything with them.
Like this.
Nope.
He said none of that feels good.
Nope. Rain, man.
Oh yeah? You like when it's raining?
Yeah, like
What's going on? What's going on? Late night family. We back in the building. Coming to bring you another exciting episode of Late Night Conversations with Unc and Nephew. I am your host, King J, also known as Nephew. To my left is my co-host,
JR, Big Unc.
What's up, Big Unc?
You already know, nephew.
What's going down, man?
Shit, hard work. Finally went back to work.
You finally back at it, huh?
And praise God that there's no pain and it's
Facts.
just sore, man, you know, but
Just got to build that muscle back up.
That's what it is, you know.
Yeah, man. That's
it
good,
is.
man. I'm glad to see you back
Heck yeah.
at work, back kicking.
Yup.
Shoot,
Dude, Sunday night and Monday night, I bet you I got 2 hours of sleep. I woke up around 2:45, 3. Couldn't go back to sleep, dog. I was afraid to, especially Monday, I was afraid of,
to miss your alarm.
yeah, dog.
Yeah.
And then waking up be 8 o'clock in the morning. I got to be there at 7.
Bro, you ever, dog, hey, you want to hear a funny story?
When was you late, dog?
One time when I was working at Walmart overnight, when I first started, it was like my second week. Man, it was hard transitioning overnight, dog,
Yeah,
staying
dude,
up all
overnight.
night. And so there was we would get an hour lunch, and I think it was
I know you didn't fall asleep in your car.
2 or 3 in the morning that we went to lunch. So I went to the car, and I was tired. And I was like, let me set an alarm. I said, I'm going to take my hour lunch. I'm just going to take an hour nap that should power me through the rest of the night.
Right.
So I set my alarm, and then I opened my eyes. It was sunlight.
What?
I was like, oh, shit. This can't be good. It was like 8:30.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dog.
You didn't hear nobody coming in and out, door slamming or nothing?
I just looked around and heard tweet, 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 tweet. The birds chirping.
Oh, man.
I said, oh, damn. I think I'm fired.
Yeah, that's what people leave for lunch over here and don't come back. It's like,
That's a no-call, no-show, pretty much.
Wow.
Dog, and it's crazy because so we get out at 7 in the morning.
Right.
I went to the boss, or I went into the boss's office. I was like, I clocked out, and she was still in there. She was like, where have you been? I said, I'm not going to lie. I fell asleep in the car. She's
What?
like, man.
She didn't write you up or nothing?
She wrote me up. She was like, that's supposed to.
Termination.
She's supposed to be termination. You
Yeah.
don't lie. But she wrote me up. So she let me make it,
I've
man.
never
She
done
let me
that,
make
dog.
it. But I had never worked overnight in my life. That was like my second. I don't think it was on my second week. I only worked 3 days the first week, and then that was like my 4th day, technically overnight.
I ain't never done that before, nephew.
I sat down, and my coworkers saw me and woke me up.
Exactly,
Goddamn,
dog.
where y'all at? Should have knocked on my window. Hey, get up, brother.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah, that was scary. I got an exciting episode planned out for you tonight, man.
Okay.
We're going to do a good creepypasta tonight.
Yeah, that's one of our favorites, man.
Yeah. So for y'all who are new to the channel, if this is y'all's first time, thank y'all for joining us.
Most
We
definitely,
really,
most
really
definitely.
appreciate it. We hope y'all enjoy the content. If y'all do enjoy the content, man, hit that subscribe button, man. Wherever you're watching your podcast at, whether that be Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, man, wherever you get your podcast from. Y'all go ahead and give us a follow if y'all like the material, if y'all like what's going on. We put a lot of work into it, and we really hope you appreciate it, and we hope you like it. And if you do, like I said, drop us a follow, give us a like, comment, let us know what y'all think. If you're watching on YouTube, man, hit that subscribe button on YouTube and punch that bell in the face so you get notified every time we drop a video. And that's every Friday at 8 a.m.
8 a.m., brother.
So for those of y'all who are new to the channel, if you are new and diving in, every now and then me and Unc do this thing called like a creepypasta, which is basically a short horror story.
Right.
We like to, I'll read him a short horror story and get his reaction from it, and then we just kind of conversate a little bit about it. Let's go ahead and jump into today's story.
Let's go, nephew.
So, Unc, today's story I have for you is called Beneath the Mall.
Beneath the mall?
Beneath the Mall.
Like a shopping center mall?
Like a shopping center mall. Beneath the
That takes me
mall.
back to like Under Paris or what is that?
You're talking about like the catacombs?
Yeah, dude.
Like as above, so below?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
that's the first thing that came to my mind.
All right, well, this story is going to...
As above, so's
So
below.
below.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so this story is going to make you feel like that.
Okay, here we
So-
go.
If you're reading this, you're probably pretty confused. I know I was. I'll explain everything. But I'm going to start at the beginning. That's the only way this will make sense. And maybe the only way you'll believe me.
Okay.
It all started with that damn job, mall security. Just as prestigious and exciting as it sounds, you'd think working the graveyard shift would be the worst part. Wandering empty halls in the dead of night, just in case some kids decided to sneak in or whatever. But honestly, the nights weren't too bad. No, it was the day shifts that were the worst. Kids running around screaming, filming videos in the middle of the walking paths, spilling food and drinks everywhere. Sometimes I felt like a janitor with a plastic badge. Hell, maybe I was. So at the end of the day, the night shifts were my preference. And I took them as often as I could, wandering in the dark, surrounded by empty storefronts with a little eerie, but I won't deny that fact, but once you got used to it, it could be peaceful. I just listen to something on my phone and do my rounds. Nobody ever tried to break in or anything, and hell, why would they? The only problem I ever had was once when a group of teenagers tried to hide out and spend the night there. They were at the food court when there was some small playground equipment for young children, and I found them hiding in the slide. They weren't exactly being sneaky, so I heard them from a mile away.
Right.
Think I gave them quite a scare, but it was nothing compared to the way their parents chewed them out. I miss times like that. Where everything went wrong was the basement. I know how glamorous I make it sound, but the nights got real boring once the novelty wore off.
Right.
So I started exploring. It started out small, just poking my head into the booths along the center of the walkways, checking out their stuff. It was remarkably easy to lift products, and some of them may have even been worth the effort.
Right.
But of course, I never did. Once I knew the inventory of all the tiny rip-off booths, there wasn't much more to see that I couldn't find during the day, just halls and closed storefronts. I started poking my head into whatever doors I could find, but they were all broom closets, storage employee bathrooms, till the basement. The doorway to the basement was a little out of the way, which is why it took me so long to find it. It was down one of the dead-end hallways between a Forever 21 and some long-closed vacant storefront. Usually I just peered down the hallway and moved on, but one day I was bored enough to go check out that empty store.
All right.
And I saw it. In the back, between some old mannequins, was a door. A heavy, steel-painted, old pale yellow. I whipped out my key ring and got to trying the lock. I had a key to every door in the place, so it took a while, but I finally found the right one.
All right.
It was a key I'd never used before. I was expecting a normal back room, gutted of all the supplies, but no. What lay before me as I finally swung that heavy door open was a set of concrete stairs. There were no lights on the stairwell, so the steps stretched down in the blackness. Now, the mall did not have a sublevel, access for maintenance, plumbing, and electricity. At first, I assumed this was simply a door to get down there, but the stairs seemed to go on too long, and the lack of lights was a serious safety hazard. But then, with how out of the way this entrance was, and the fact that the store it was in had been long closed, it felt safe to say that nobody had probably used it in a long time. I shone my light down the stairs, and they seemed endless, definitely deeper than I would have expected. Was there a basement to this mall? This whole time? Why? Extra storage? But I had never seen anybody use it. Whatever it was, it seemed likely that it had been abandoned.
Okay.
I stepped back. The stretching darkness was making me anxious, and I had to complete my rounds. The mannequins nearly made me jump out of my skin, but they hadn't moved or anything, but I just forgotten they were there. Standing like guards barring the door from the entrance, I closed the door and locked it, deciding to come back some other time. Instead, I finished my rounds and went home. I lived in a small apartment by myself, nothing particularly nice, but I mean, it was my own space and I loved it. I took good care of it too. God, I missed that place. What I would do to just spend one more night there in my own bed. But as I lay there that night, all I thought of was that stairwell, staring down into the darkness, unable to gauge anything of what might be down there. It was unresponsive, like a brick wall. I knew I had to go down and see it for myself, so the next night, I did it. I hurried through the rest of my rounds. Instead of wandering and sightseeing like normal, I made my way over to the door. Part of me expected that it wouldn't be there, that the mannequins would be in a different position. You know, just looking at me or something, but no, it was there. And the mannequin stood sentinel as always. I opened the door again, hinges squeakingly quiet as it presented me with that open maw. I used one of those mannequins to hold the door, afraid of being locked inside. Then I stepped down. For a while, I thought the staircase would never end. My flashlight was high-powered enough that I really should be able to see the bottom rather quickly, but it was just more stairs, the light terminating in inky darkness. I descended slowly. There were no handrails, and falling on these concrete steps for who knows how far down would be extremely painful. I passed 50 steps. That should be multiple stories. How far down does this go? What was in there? I noticed that the stairwell had the slightest curve, bending left almost impeccably. By 100 steps, the door up at the top was shrinking into a rectangle of light, curving almost out of sight. By 200, it was gone. Just me and those stairs. The darkness felt like it was choking me. The air, stagnant and unpleasant. Minute after minute, there were no changes. The stairs looked the same. The walls and ceilings were smooth, bare concrete. No signs, graffiti, nothing. I walked for a long time. I was beginning to think that I should go back. I had been walking down those stairs for almost half an hour by then. No, that's not right. I knew I should go back, not just for my shift, but because this was dangerous. Falling here would probably kill me, and who knows what might be down there. This was deep, far too deep to make any real sense, but I didn't stop. I had to know what could possibly be hidden so deep in the earth. Finally, after about 45 minutes, a landing came into sight. I hurried down the last few steps, excited to see what all this had been for. The landing was the same as the rest of the hall, smooth, bare concrete. It occurred to me that not even dust, crumbs, or animal droppings populated this strange walkway. The walls directly to my right and in front of me were similarly bare, and the ceiling hung very low. Just as featureless as everything else, but on the left was a door. Not just any door, elevator doors with just one button. It must go up, I figured, which makes sense. Who would want to walk all these stairs, but then again, why come down here anyway? Putting that aside and feeling desperate to return to the surface, I pressed the button. Surprisingly, it actually lit up. The elevator dinged, indicating the carriage was already on my level, but the doors didn't open. Then I realized that there was a keyhole below the button. I tried the same key that had worked on the door, and sure enough, it opened. The elevator was well lit, a welcome surprise. Poking my head inside, I saw that it was old. Not mining shaft elevator old, more like fancy hotel old. The kind of elevator where a man in a funny hat operates the buttons for you. Cautiously, I stepped inside. I looked at the buttons, which would once again require a key to operate. I know you may think this is stupid, but I was rather desperate to get out, so I put my key into the keyhole and pressed the button with an arrow pointing upwards. The button didn't stay on and the doors didn't close. Nothing moved. I pressed it a few more times, then I realized it. This was the top floor. The elevator only went down.
Oh.
I ran back up the stairs, throwing caution aside in a moment of panic. Down, further down, this was insane. Nuclear bunker levels of deep. Maybe that's what it was, I thought, slowing as I ran out of breath and began to cramp. Yeah, probably just an old bunker. That would make sense. The strange stairwell, the long distance, a bunker, it must be. The rest of the climb was agonizing. My legs were already sore, and now I had this cramp in my side, making everything worse. It took a long time to get to the top, but when I did, that mannequin was still doing its duty, keeping me from being stuck down there forever. I stood upright and thanked it for its service, then closed and locked the door. I decided that whatever was down there wasn't interesting enough to warrant the effort. Hell, it was dangerous too. I was lucky the elevator hadn't snapped and fallen to the bottom the moment I stepped inside, but beyond that, it was obvious, painfully obvious, that something wasn't right. That place was not meant for me. I went home and decided to put it all in my mind. I would never go back there again. Except, if that were true, I wouldn't be writing this.
Right.
And you wouldn't be reading it either. I stayed good to my word for a while, doing my rounds like normal, living my life, but the thoughts of that place never left me. For the next 3 months, I continued working at that mall. I took more day shifts. Part of it was to avoid the discomfort the night now held, and part of it was to avoid temptation. I still felt drawn to that place. I felt that if I had to know what was down there, eventually, looking to avoid it entirely, I managed to find a new job, security for a company or something like that. Truth be told, I really don't remember anymore. I would only work at the mall for a couple more weeks and then I would be done with the place. But of course, there was still one thing I had to do.
One thing, yo.
I loaded up before the trip. Lots of extra batteries, a couple extra flashlights, a portable charger, a small medical kit, and some protein bars and water bottles, just in case. I knew that my phone wouldn't get reception through all those layers of concrete, so I wanted to be prepared. It was stupid. Of course it was stupid. I know it was stupid, but I'm sorry. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous for me to apologize to you given the circumstances, but I do feel the need to. I'm sorry. I went back to the doorway. I descended the stairs, now with confidence and renewed vigor. It's funny how much easier it is when you know there's a bottom, right? So I made my way down. A while later, I got to that elevator again. It was waiting for me, old and regal. I inserted the key and climbed inside. Then I turned the internal key and hesitated. Is that the dog?
The dog.
I inserted the key and climbed inside. Then I turned the internal key and hesitated. A wave of doubt so strong it made me nauseous. Maybe some small part of me knew, but maybe it's just hindsight. I pressed the button. The elevator jolted and groaned as it began to descend. At first I was worried it would be a nerve-wracking ride of groans and potential snaps, but it smoothed out before long. I was anxious but very excited. I never knew I had this adventurous urban explorer tendency. I couldn't wait to see what this old relic hid, so I stood in the cab with bated breath and waited more. After 15 minutes of that slow descent, I started to wonder if it would ever reach the bottom. Was it even moving? I knew I had felt the motion at first, but it had been so long by now that I was no longer sure if it had simply adjusted or if it stopped altogether. There was no light for the floor, no indication of any kind to tell what the elevator was doing. It was then I realized there was no emergency button either. Nothing to call for help if I did get stuck. Just an up arrow and a down arrow. That scared me. I felt panic begin to grip me, but I managed to calm myself down. It was another 30 minutes before I finally caved. It was getting late, and if I didn't turn back now, I wouldn't be there until morning. I reached out and pressed the up arrow and nothing happened. I pressed it again and again, but the thing didn't respond. At this point, panic took me. I slammed the arrow, hitting it, trying the down arrow, hitting both, nothing, no in-flight controls on this machine. After a while, I curled up on the ground and decided I had no choice but to wait. According to my phone, it took me 2 more hours. Usually, I'd be home by then asleep, but instead, I was gradually losing my mind in a broom closet-sized cabin, descending what must be 1,000 feet below the earth. How much rock was above us? Whatever was down here, and how did they manage to excavate all of it and bring it to the surface? And who the hell used it? I was lost in these thoughts when I heard it. A low resonant sound like someone striking a gong, but pluckier. The elevator jolted and shattered. My heart leaped into my throat, and suddenly the ceiling came down to meet me as we plummeted into the abyss. The rest of the journey down is a blur. I don't know if it was more like 3 minutes or only 20 seconds that we rocketed down. My backpack flying around in the chaos. The seeming lack of gravity may have been a fun experience if not for the fact that it was likely gonna kill me. Finally, we hit the bottom hard. The last thing I remember is that suddenly I was falling and the elevator wasn't. How did I survive that impact? I don't know. I woke up in a while later, my head aching terribly and my whole body groaning in pain. The elevator's light had gone out, so I couldn't see anything. I grabbed my flashlight out of the bag and flicked it on to examine the damages. Remarkably, I seemed okay. On the outside, at least. My insides felt like they had been hit with a sledgehammer. But I didn't have any protruding bones, so I counted that as a win. I turned up to examine the cabin. The doors were slightly ajar from the impact, which was a good thing because they didn't seem to be opening automatically like they were meant to.
Right.
I tried the buttons, but of course they didn't work, so I got to prying the doors open for a time instead. It took quite a bit of effort, but I got them far enough apart that I could crawl through on my elbows. Finally, I could see what was down here, and maybe I could find someone to help me get back to the surface. When I shambled to my feet, I saw a large open space ahead of me. I didn't need my flashlight anymore as some of the overhead lights were functional, giving a strange ghostly feeling to the place. I took a few steps forward to examine my surroundings and heard them echo back to me. I saw glass doors, shutters, booths in the middle of the walkway. It was a mall. Not the same mall I had come from, but similar enough that I knew it immediately.
Right.
Under the mall, miles below the surface, was another mall. Why? What possible reason could there be such a place? I moved to examine the stores, looking in through the glass doors to peer inside. They appeared normal, toy stores, candy shops, and empty, unused spaces like any other failing American mall. But this was good. A mall meant phones, entrances, and people. How all that was down here was beyond me. But there would be no purpose to a mall without these things. I checked my phone, the screen now cracked from the impact. But of course, I had no reception. So I began to walk all the halls like so many night shifts before. I walked a long time that first night looking for entrances, maybe office spaces, anything that may have had a landline or a way out. But as I walked, I felt that I gained no ground. The space didn't repeat per se, but it seemed endless. There were no entrances. Hell, there weren't even windows. Some places had power and lights. Others were pitch black, forcing me to use my flashlight to get through. I decided to check out a few of the stores, see if there was an office space in the back or something. I was ready to smash my way in too, so what if I set off an alarm? All the better if someone heard me, but my keys actually worked. In fact, I could open the door to any store I liked. I could open every door in the entire place, but how? That should have been impossible. Some of these keys were totally new. I figured that maybe the locks were more for looks, opening and when any key was used, but no, they all rejected the other similar keys on my ring. Each place had its own key and it would accept no others. I didn't find any phones. Finally, I gave in, went to look somewhere to sleep for the night. I stumbled across a food court next to a Dick's Sporting Goods. I caught the scent of something other than acrid, stagnant air. Walking over to the food stalls in the area, I saw that they were still stocked. Food in the containers, some even kept warm. It made no sense to me, but I wasn't going to argue. I was hungry, and a few protein bars only gets you so far. I went for some Chinese food. I hadn't had Panda Express in a while. Lo mein noodles and orange chicken. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good either. But when I finished up, I went to see what I could figure out for a sleeping arrangement. I decided to push some tables together and sleep out in the open. After all, being found in the morning was the best result. I went to a nearby clothing store and rifled through their wares, finding the fluffiest options, and found a Spencer's with one of those giant tortilla blankets and made myself at home on the makeshift bed. It wasn't comfortable, of course, but it worked for me, and after a long time, I finally fell asleep. When I woke up, I had no idea what time it was. Nothing had changed. The lights were still intermittently on, and everything was dim. I looked around, but there was no signs of life. I called out into the hallways around me. Hello, is anyone there? I checked my phone. It was 3 p.m. Had I slept that long, or did that fall do worse than I thought? I wasn't sure. Either way, nobody had shown up. I spent a while back at my fort, brainstorming. Then I heard something. A quiet slapping noise. Bare feet on the tile. So quiet, I could barely make it out. It stopped as soon as I started. Hello? I called again. Across the court from me, 2 more tentative slaps. Someone was getting closer. I tried to convince myself this was a good thing. Probably security or an employee, but then why were they barefooted? They rounded the corner slowly, peering around as though they were afraid of what might be on the other side as much as I was. It was a strange, gaunt figure. Naked, genuinely humanoid. It had gray skin and long white hair. Its eyes were black, its teeth missing. The expression on its face was horrible, agony and fear. Over every part of its body, the skin was stretched so tight that its bones were clearly visible. It reached its hand towards me and began to stumble in my direction. Its mouth drooped open and a raspy breath emerged, started like a whisper but ascending to a howl. It screamed and began moving faster. That sound was horrible. Shrill, piercing wails that sounded like they were shredding its vocal cords, like it hadn't spoken in years. Whatever it was not human. I got up and I ran. I had my bag, thankfully, and I wasn't worried about much else. I heard other noises as I looked down one corridor after another in that long, winding maze. Other things waking up, perhaps? Was its wailing cry a signal to them, or would they hunt me like it did me? Inevitably, I got lost. Losing the creature was not difficult. It was rather slow, but I no longer knew where I was either. I had taken escalators both up and down, but everything looked more or less the same. Out of breath, I found myself in a long corridor where the lights didn't function and slowed to a walk. I turned on my flashlight as I made my way down the hall trying to keep quiet. It reminded me of my nights at security all over again, and that's when it hit me. Security. There should be a security office somewhere. They will have cameras typically pointed at the main entrances and exits, not to mention multiple methods of contacting personnel. I had an idea on how to find it too. The place was massive, but that didn't mean it was impossible. There may very well be multiple security offices in a place like this. How else could an officer possibly respond to calls from opposite sides of the mall? And though I didn't know where they were, I could use my intuition for that. Overall, the mall was laid out like a normal mall. Things were generally where you would expect them to be, with the exception of any way in and out. So if I relied on my intuition, maybe my feet would guide themselves to the office. Brilliant, right? Okay, maybe not, but it was all I had. The next 2 days were spent in a pursuit of this goal. I walked through the mall trying to automatically orient myself. I didn't call out anymore and stuck to the stores for sleep. Food and batteries were not difficult to find. Somehow the place was fully stocked. Realistically, this place had everything I needed to live. Bathrooms were easy enough to find as well, meaning water and a place to relieve myself. I stayed in the lit areas whenever I could, avoiding the dark, even if it meant losing track of that gut feeling. I was chasing. Something about those dead zones unnerved me. Finally, I stumbled across something. Signs of life. I was quietly rummaging through a food court when I noticed something odd. Someone had beaten me to it. Of course, there was plenty left, but someone had been there, or something. Trash was left by one of the freezers, showing that the culprit had been in the mood for a refrigerated sub. I wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or afraid, but the concept of someone else being there gave me a spark of hope. That kind of isolation can make you insane quickly, and I was craving the opportunity to see someone, to speak to them. So I got to work scouring the surrounding areas. I moved quietly in case more of those things were nearby. Again, I was left to follow my gut, but this time it worked. I found what I had been looking for, a security office next to the bathrooms. The door was left ajar. Excited, I went to open it, finding that the desk inside was covered in piles of paper and one of the microphones they used to make announcements. The place had been renovated like a room of sorts. String lights on the ceiling, blankets piled on the floor, piled on the chair, extra clothes even. Whoever had been in the area was probably staying here. I examined the room closer, distraught to find that there was no phone, but elated at the sight of a wall of screens. Functional cameras. I leaned over the desk, examined them closely. None of them showed an entrance, but still, a lay of the land would be useful. As I was examining the camera feeds, the door swung open. It was a man with brown hair and glasses that looked like me. No, not just like looked like me. He was me. Exactly the face I had seen in the mirror every day. Suddenly, looking at me with a similar expression of shock that I was. I jumped back, sending piles of paper spilling to the ground. He looked wary. He put a finger to his lips and looked at me intensely, gestured downwards with a flat palm to tell me, keep it down. I came a little closer, away from the wall, to get a good look at him. He looked tired and defeated. He was skinnier than I was too. How long had he been here? As I leaned in, he began to panic, reaching out to me and shaking his head. It scared me and I lost balance briefly, falling over the desk. I caught myself but found what he was been so worried about. I hit the button to activate the microphone, and feedback was beginning to whir through the speakers outside. He glanced around and gave me a sad, pitying look before running off. He didn't bother to try to gather his belongings, he just bolted. I should have followed suit. Instead, I raised my hand from the button, turning off the speakers. Their shrill cry still echoed through the halls, ringing out as though calling for a mate. Something called back. Not like the thing earlier that was a deeper and much louder. I heard it from a distance, a roar more than a scream. That was enough for me to finally bolt. I turned hall after hall, hoping to impede its line of sight as best as I could. I could hear its loud, thumping footsteps. It was gaining on me. It could hear me running, and it was faster. My only way forward was a dead zone, so I whipped out a flashlight and kept running. I decided my only option was to hide, and I turned to the nearest store and tried the handle, locked like every other store. I threw my flashlight to the ground and began searching for my keys in a panic. I found the right one and flung the door open, jumping inside as fast as I could. I hid towards the back of the room and I could see the hallway through the glass door, thanks to my drop light. The creature's booming thuds slowed, but they didn't stop. Large, heavy breaths that sounded pained. Gray skin like the other thing, but so much larger. It had the dimensions of a giant gorilla with a massive bulky arms in the front of its thick, sharp talons protruding from its hands. Its head resembled a human skull, to the point that I was unsure if its sunken sockets even had eyes on them. But the lower jaw was missing. Its rib cage was splayed totally open, the remnants of some entrails hanging out, and the opening continued to its upper jaw where there were no teeth. Did it have no organs? How did it live? How could it even eat? It seemed to sniff the air over my flashlight and turn towards the store I was hiding in. A moment later, giant hands slid under the shutters. I went to hide behind a shelf of stuffed animals. The shutter screeched as it was pulled open. Lumbering steps came inside the store, coming up on the aisle on my left. There was nowhere to run. My only hope was to make it out the same way the beast had came in. I crept slowly around the opposite side of the aisle while the thing lumbered closer. When it was just rounding the aisle, I made my move, creeping around the corner and heading for the opening. I heard it grunt. It turned to look at me and saw me, and I ran. It was on top of me in an instant, its hand pinning me to the wall so hard the tile cracked. It slammed me into a few more times for a good measure. It slammed me into it for a few times for good more measures. Then it held me up and went for the killing blow. Its long, sharp fingers pierced my abdomen and I screamed. I had never felt pain quite like that before. The world grew fuzzy and distant as it threw me to the ground. It wasn't long before I blacked out completely. I awoke in agony. I knew I should be dead, yet I wasn't. I felt incredibly sick and I was completely unable to see. The air smelled dank and atrocious, like meat and rot. I touched my stomach and found a horrible hole had been torn into my gut. It was bleeding profusely and far more blood than was safe to lose. My left arm hurt terribly too, and it wouldn't respond right when I tried to move it. Badly broken as it turned out, I fumbled for my bag, trying to find a flashlight with just one arm, and finally I did, and I pulled it out and turned it on. Nothing could have possibly prepared me for the sight that awaited me.
Oh, Lord.
It was a long, seamless, endless hall, smooth concrete like that staircase. But all along the ground lining either side of the hall were bodies, almost human with facial features all too familiar. They stretched into the distance, so many of them that I couldn't count them. They turned to look at me with long hair and sunken eyes. They were rotting, melting into the ground and becoming part of the walls around them. Totally unable to move or act, but not dead. They resembled mold colonies. If I could have screamed then, I'm sure I would have, but my internal organs were in such disarray that I saved myself from summoning that thing again. The bodies began to mumble as I moved towards the near end of the hall where I could see a door in the distance. I was worried they would scream, but they seemed like they were unable to. They didn't seem to care when I stepped on them to get by either. I made my way down to the door and saw it was ajar, a hand on the floor holding it open. I felt lucky not to be locked inside with whatever those things were. Whatever the hand belonged to, it wasn't moving. Opening the door cautiously, I saw what it was, a mannequin. The same one I had used so long
A
ago.
hose.
I stepped outside and recognized the old abandoned store from the original mall. Though all the lights were out, I turned back towards the thing's nest and recognized the pale yellow door as well. I shambled outside into the surrounding darkness. It was the same as ever here. It was the same as ever here, just repeating endless stores. Slowly, carefully, I managed to escape. Those next couple of weeks were hard. I was silent, but every now and then when I would have to hide to avoid the smaller zombie-like things slumping around, my wounds began to heal themselves, though they took quite a bit longer. At the time, I thought it was some sort of miracle. I see it now for the cruel joke it is. I made it out of that thing's hunting grounds before too long and wandering aimlessly. I tried going in one direction for as long as possible, hoping that there'd be an end if I was far enough. There wasn't. Whatever this thing is, I think it truly goes on forever. Finally, I came across another security office where I found a note. This note, well, maybe not this exact note. I honestly don't remember. But I found this note describing everything I've just been through, as I'm sure it will for you. I hope that this was enough to convince you. Whatever is happening here, it's not just the mall repeating. It's us too. I put off writing this note for a long time. It must have been multiple decades by now. My body hardly ages, but I still look different in the mirror. Trust me, it just hurts. The other versions of us I come across are the same, hopeless and defeated. We don't make good company. I think that you already know what I'm going to tell you next. These things that prowl the halls, the bodies behind the door, even the giant beast, I think it's all us. We spend enough time here and we go mad enough and that's what we become. I don't want that, but what can I do? There is no eternal rest for us. Are we cursed perhaps? What did we do to deserve such a fate? My only hope is that things aren't set in stone. I hope that this letter is at least a little bit different from the one I read. Or the one you'll probably write. That would mean it's possible to change things. With enough of us, maybe someday, one of them will figure something out. As for me, that doorway calls me again. Somehow, I know how to find it. Intuition, I guess. I wonder if maybe the giant beast isn't making a nest there. Maybe it's guarding it, keeping it quiet and dark. A pale imitation of death. If I go there, maybe I can find some instance of peace. Wait out the eons in the quiet oblivion. I hope you can change things, that you can avoid the fate I have. But if not, see you there, partner.
Bro, that's deep. That's a deep story, dog.
That's wild.
What kind of mind is that, dude?
Dude, that's crazy. Dog, that's...
I'm like, what's going on here, man? What's going on? And I knew he was losing his mind.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought the footsteps that he was hearing was other people who've done the same thing as him.
Right,
who find that door and decide
to come
should
down.
I go, should I not, should I go? And then when they go, it's too late.
Yeah.
There's no way out. It's like a internal hell.
Yeah, you're like stuck.
Yeah.
Dog, that's crazy. And it's just like, it just keeps repeating and repeating.
Everything, yeah.
It's like,
it's a version of him at a later date.
Yes.
You know?
He's leaving himself notes. He's trying to find a way out.
Yeah.
But it's like, it always happens. He keeps finding that door and a new him comes down there.
Exactly.
And
it's always him constantly. It's like, he said, I'm not going to go down there. I'm not going to go down there.
But something is calling him.
Which is him.
It's his destiny.
His inner him.
Trying to find him
to come and
try
save
to find
him.
a way out. Yeah, maybe that's what I was thinking while I was reading the story, or like when I first read the story.
Yeah.
I was like, why does he keep repeating though?
Yeah,
why is it
he
him?
saw how dangerous it was, but he's like, you know what? I'm not going. But his inner being, his mind is telling him, no, there's something out there. Not so much like telling him do it, but it's in his mind. Let me go check it out. Let me won't leave him alone because he's trying to find a way out, dude. It's like being stuck in your own mind. I guess. Well, is it mental or is it? Did he actually go down the stairs, or is it something he pictured from working overnight and being so just maybe he thought it up and he just can't get out of. He got locked in his mind. What is that called? I don't want to say butterfly effect, man, but like when people were hooked on PCP or acid back in the 70s.
Oh, like when they go on a trip and never come out of it.
Come out of it, dude.
Man, that would be crazy.
You know?
I was also thinking, like, what if he died? What if he died going down the stairs or in the elevator? Maybe the elevator was old and it just broke and he died, but now he's reliving the same, I don't know.
Is it a Groundhog Day, like you're saying, Groundhog Day?
Yeah, like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Or maybe he has to keep trying.
But maybe that is smart, leaving a note,
yeah.
But
I'm saying maybe he has to keep trying until he finds his way out. And maybe
But it's actually the people that are all around him, it's him just aging,
generation after lives after lives that he's been failing to find a way out. And that's a good theory too, dog.
It's a crazy story, dude.
This reminds me of like the back rooms, like the backroom theory and stuff like that.
Yeah, like the one we showed me where you just walk in and there's no way out.
And there's just no way out, dude. And every door leads to another room.
You just go insane.
Dude, it's crazy, Unc. Like watch, I'm gonna have to put some pictures up, man.
Right.
But like, could you imagine? Because I play, it's a horror game now, like on certain games.
Right.
You just open a door and you walk in and now you're in a room.
You're a different portal.
I mean, it's like it puts you in a whole nother realm.
That's what I'm saying.
And now every door, some of them have slides. You slide down into a new area.
But there's no way out. There's no back.
And it's always something new. Yeah, there's no way back.
You can't get back to reality.
Yes, you can't get out of this realm you're in. And could you imagine the fear, bro? Like,
constant fear.
Because you're alone where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
There might be something hiding in the shadows.
Whatever's hiding, but you're still alone. Because it's not like you got a partner. He's not going to partner
it's not like somebody's with you.
Right.
Bro, you are on your own.
We talked about it last week when being 10 years locked up in a 4x8 cell.
Oh, right.
Nobody to talk to. I spent 9 weeks at home, dog.
Just in your mind.
In my mind, dude. And you got to just get out of it.
People got a little taste of that during COVID.
Yeah.
When it was a 14-day
lockdown. How many, I think we talked about it, domestic violence went
up, suicide rate went up, just because people were stuck at home by themselves or with their partner, and it's just
they can't go nowhere. So everything's locked down.
Your mind is just like, man, like there's nothing else for you, and it's crazy, dog, to just think. That's what's scary for me for the back rooms. Not so much the monsters that's hiding.
Sometimes maybe the monsters, they kill me quick. And I'm done,
so
because.
But what if you die and you have to restart from the bottom, from the front?
That'd be crazy, dude.
Like until you get out, you have to keep.
But I know what you're saying about being in the back room. It's not so much afraid of the darkness, but afraid of your own mind.
Yeah, but not only that, too. It's like being in your own mind or being by yourself. You got to think, because everybody describes the back room as like. It's like office lights.
Right.
You can hear the buzzing of the lights and
but
that's it. There's no sound. Yeah, the fluorescent tubes.
Yeah.
That buzzing.
Yeah.
But that's all you hear. It's just quiet, and it's every door you open and you shut, you're in a new room. One has water on the floor. You walk through the water, you open another door, you're in a parking garage. You got to find somewhere to go. You find a parking garage, you shut it. Now you're in a field.
And then when it's sleep, you force yourself to sleep or whatever. Or do you ever sleep?
That's the other thing, man. It's just
how long do you keep going? Is this a repetitious of a day that you're reliving with no sleep?
Right.
Like you said, in a different realm.
Do you even need sleep? Like, obviously, this guy needed sleep,
right?
But it's like he's running away from himself.
Yeah.
Like he's the beast
until he finds out who. Yeah. Until he finds out. What's going on? Leaving the notes, I don't know, dog. I mean,
it's just that's a big fear, and maybe that's a symbolization of.
I don't want to say
depression.
Fear of being alone, but kind of is a fear of being alone.
Yeah, man, you got to think that is a genuine fear, dog.
No, being locked in. I don't think. I know.
Just being trapped
alone,
somewhere.
Yeah, trapped.
Like where you can't get out, dude. That is a scary feeling. I think for me, this story maybe could be a good representation of depression. Like You know
You're right,
what I mean?
dude. Because you're in your mind.
Your own mind is the beast.
Right.
Trying to eat. I mean, it's
And
eating
you
you
can't
away.
beat it. You can't beat it. You can't beat it.
Yeah, you feel like so you
it's
keep
over and over and over.
your
and your mind
dreams
just-
die, your thoughts die. Like you just, maybe that's a good representation of depression, man. Like how it feels to.
That's
your
good,
inner
nephew.
being.
That's good.
Yeah, right.
I didn't think of that until you said it. You're right, man. That's good.
You're your own enemy. Just like in there.
I have a TikToker that I follow. That she draws paintings. Of depression, of anxiety,
right.
And it's like fluorescent, dude. And when she has a black light on it, it shows like it'll say like it's like a female hunched over like this or whatever, man, and she'll have a knife in her back. She'll have her brain will be different, because it's PTSD, ADHD,
Right.
Sometimes, man, I mean, because we understand depression. We've been through it,
Right.
I lost my daughter, whatever. So, but not to the point where suicidal, you know what I'm saying? There's some people who, but for her to paint something and hit it, you've got to really know how people are, what they're going through.
Oh, yeah. That's why.
But I guess that comes from people talking.
Yeah.
Our problem is, as Hispanic men,
we don't talk
keep
about our feelings.
Up. Yeah,
everybody thinks, man, everybody thinks they can handle their own emotions.
Right,
and sometimes you can't, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you literally can't. I learned that from experience.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I tell people, you don't understand. Like, I get it. When people say, well, they committed suicide, they're just cowardly or selfish. I get when people say that. I understand because, you leave a family behind or whatever.
Yeah,
but
somebody's hurting you, your kids or whatever.
But you got to think, though, man. You got to step in somebody's shoes sometimes and say, what? How painful was their life and emotion that they would even want to...
Right, your emotions.
That they would want to take their life.
Yeah.
Because you think it's an easy decision.
Right.
It's not, bro. That's not something that you just...
because you want to, but you don't want to.
Yeah, you don't. Bro, I've dealt with that.
You just want the depression, this anxiety,
to leave,
panic to leave your body. I'm not even gonna say it, but people who have what is that word? Just can't stop. With depression or anxiety.
Yeah.
It's worse. No pill works.
Yeah, you feel like you've tried everything. That's why I tell people I understand that because as you know, like I've lived with that my whole life. I lived with depression, suicidal thoughts. I know how that feels.
Right.
A lot of the times, bro, you're not even sad about nothing. Like you're not nothing.
But it's a feeling from inner.
Yeah, it's not an external feeling.
Right.
It's something you feel internal.
Right.
That that you can't describe it to people and people don't understand.
And they don't.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes you see somebody. We try to mask it.
Yeah. We put the mask on. Yeah.
But sometimes people do notice it, and that's if you notice it on somebody, it should be your human right or your human responsibility to say, hey, dude, you don't look good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I be like watching the TikTok, like, hey. I'm gonna see you tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna see you tomorrow, right?
A lot of times what it boils down to is that people get so wrapped up in their own life that you forget to really reach out to somebody and ask them how they're really doing.
Oh, most definitely. You
know what I mean?
But sometimes us men,
we're
mainly
one of the
Hispanic,
biggest.
is I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I ain't finna.
My heart is broken. My mind is going 0 to 100 like that. But I'm good.
Yeah, but you're good. Yeah, you just I'm fine.
Where that person that asked me could be the remedy that I need.
Yes, bro.
To snap out of it.
That is so true. That's why I tell people like I'm a big advocate for talking to people.
Yeah.
Because like even for us, like you said, Hispanic males or even males in general. Bro, we gotta learn. We have to learn
to show emotion.
It's okay to express yourself.
Yeah.
Like, do not let nobody make you feel that that you're a punk for talking your feelings out.
Tear or
cry, man.
Sometimes even to this day, I really haven't. I want to say bald. I'm for Ken. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes as much as my body aches and my heart is broken, I just can't release it.
Right.
You know, sometimes I think that's what happens with a lot of men.
Yeah.
Is that it's bottled up so deep that they break.
Yeah, they snap, man.
Yeah.
And it's
which is suicide.
Yeah, or they
go
snap on somebody, a family member, they hurt their family.
Domestic violence.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're bottling up everything so much, and bro, I mean, it's literally.
I'm not condoning it and saying that men, you know, sometimes when they lose it, it's wrong either way.
Yeah. No, you're not justifying why they've lost it.
Right.
Either way, it's wrong. Whatever you do,
but if you would
physically
just
violence,
had somebody see the symptoms, or you ask for help.
Yeah, just
sometimes when you're to that point, you're like, bro, I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, like I need help. You know, I need to reach out to somebody and do that, man. Yeah. Like, if you're at a
pastor, or your
family members,
somebody who testimonies. That's why testimonies are so great, man.
Yeah,
because you never know, your testimony can save 1 to 100 people.
Exactly.
Because I never knew Javi was going through that. I never knew how, but Javi made it through, and then you're like, if Javi can do it,
then I can do it.
Then I can
exactly.
do it. Especially when you give a testimony on how you survived it, what it took, whether it's speaking to a counselor, speaking to a family member, to your wife, or just crying for days on out, like a female. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
See,
but you know what I'm saying? I mean, sometimes it takes something to break you to get over that.
What men have to realize is being vulnerable is what really makes you strong as a man. But to be honest with you,
but pride is pride is probably the worst demonic feeling that a man can have.
Yeah, because some men are too proud. They feel like, man, I ain't finna cry. Like, they ain't gonna look at me like I'm a punk.
Right.
But bro, that's just a misconception. That's really a misconception. Right. And I think that's what's plagued the men for years.
Well, I mean, from day one.
Yeah, you know what I mean? All that, like, I get it, bro. I get it. As a father to a boy, you know, there's times where, you know, he may fall or hurt himself. You be like, man, come on, son, get up. But there is times where genuinely you got to teach your kids. When they hurt themselves,
you got to teach them, hey, it's okay to cry.
It's okay to cry, man.
Dad, I hurt myself. You know, we were always taught, get up.
Yeah, get up, don't cry. You don't want to make weak men. Right. And it's not about that. You can raise a strong gentleman.
Right.
You can raise a strong man on principle, but you gotta also it's one thing to just be strong, but it's also another thing to be mentally strong.
Well, see, that's what I was gonna say, because a lot of times it's like, get up. You know, don't be crying. You know.
Yeah, but then offer no
explanation, no comfort. Say, come here. Let me tell you why this is not a reason to cry. Because it wasn't bad enough. You hurt yourself. But was it really that bad? No. Work your way around it. Now, when you go and you break your arm, and as a kid, or you break your leg, you know, that's different. Like, man, hey, it's okay to cry.
There's different instances. And see, that's a good analogy for life.
That's the thing I think a lot of men don't give a reason why you shouldn't do this or why you should do that.
Right.
You know,
that's the importance of having a dad growing up, bro.
Right.
To really show
a dad
you
who's present with this kid. Yeah, who's present and makes the effort, because there's a lot of present dads that don't make an effort. They're just there because it's a duty.
Right.
I'm married. I got kids. I got to make sure I work. I got to do this, but don't spend time with the family, even though he's present in the relationship.
Feels like you feel like you're present. That's why, man, I encourage all dads, like, because I love being a dad, bro.
Yeah, of
and
course.
I always tell people, like, you got to be hands-on with your kids, man. I talk to my son.
Right.
And, you know, like, there's times that, like, man, matter of fact, good example, when his fish died.
Yeah.
He was really hurt about it.
Right.
You know, his little fish died. But I mean, we took him to the toilet. Right. You know, we put him in there, and
so you made an effort to comfort him.
Yes, I comforted him
at the time that he needed comfort, because it's
and I explained to him. I said, "Son, this is a part of life. Some things, you know, they live and they pass away.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're gonna have to deal with this." And I told him straight up, like, you know, one day everybody's gonna pass away.
Right.
I was like, but it's okay because he's in a better place. And, I
Right.
just kind of,
Right.
I worked him through his emotions. I told him, I know you're sad,
And that's
son.
what it takes.
I know you're feeling like this, but don't worry. It's okay to cry if you want to cry.
Right.
And he did. I held him, and he said he loved this fish.
Yeah.
And I said, trust me, son, I know.
Yeah.
He let it out.
Let his emotions
I
not
worked with him.
overpower him, but,
but
work
he felt
through
them. He feel them.
Yeah.
Feel your emotions. They're
Yeah.
there for a reason, bro.
Yeah.
And he felt them, and then I comforted him, and then after that I told him, look, son, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah,
You may be sad.
you can grieve for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
But life still goes on.
I mean,
regardless.
imagine how that interaction could have went on if I'd have told him, stop crying, man. It's just a damn fish.
Yeah, it's just a fish.
It's just
so
get
now
over it.
You broke his heart, and you put something in his mind
To not cry when he should.
My dad don't care.
Exactly.
Either
so
that,
now
my dad's not. He doesn't. See, my dad don't care. Why should I care? And then that's how you start getting.
Now he's getting emotionally numb.
Now
to stuff.
it's like, if my fish died, shit, what if I kill my dog? They're not gonna know if I kill him. I mean, I'm not gonna go. That's
the extreme.
That's an extreme.
Yeah.
But you're planting seeds.
Yeah.
That we don't realize we're planting.
Yeah.
By the way we speak to our children.
Exactly, bro. That's what I'm saying. That whole interaction could have been blown out. Man, stop crying. It's just a damn fish.
Yeah.
But now he's becoming emotionally numb to things and at a young age. I mean,
Yeah.
kids pick up on stuff fast, man.
Quick, man.
And now my son, he's
So now he knows that he can come to you.
yes. See, he can come to dad and when he's sad,
this is what
man,
I'm going through right
feeling
now.
like this.
And see, that's the thing that we didn't grow up with.
Exactly.
I don't want to say we.
We didn't go to your dad when you were hurting his, I'm sad,
Yeah.
Dad. You didn't hear that.
Yeah,
Man,
no.
what are you sad for, man? Be a man.
Be a man,
But what is a man, though? I mean, you can't be sad, like,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
we were brought up to be men the way they were brought up to be men.
Exactly.
Sometimes, if we don't break that generational curse of speaking to your children in a proper manner,
the cycle just continues, man.
Yeah, and it's psychological. Because even though sometimes we feel like, man, I really wish that I could speak my emotions out, but at the same time I know that I'm too prideful.
Right.
And sometimes I know that nobody's gonna listen. That's the key too, is if you have, like you said, you listen to your son.
Yeah.
So he knows you were there to listen. A lot of times they'll be like, I can't tell my dad this, or I can't tell my mom that.
Yeah.
But why is that? Because generational curses of how men and women were raised,
bringing up their kids. Yeah, man. I mean, that's a good topic, man. I really think that us as men, we got to really step back and we got to change the way we think, man. Because
especially nowadays, nephew, because these kids are raised different than we were.
Oh yeah,
we were tough. I'm not saying these kids ain't tough, but we were physically tough and mentally tough.
Yeah.
These kids could be physically, but they're mentally slower, even though they're smarter, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is, Unc, is back then
we didn't have participation trophies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I get what you're saying, because that's where a lot of like the older generation say, well, y'all raising these kids soft,
Right.
Well, no participation trophies and stuff like that. And that, there's
you lose.
to an extent. You got to teach your kids that sometimes if you don't try hard enough, or sometimes you just lose,
right?
And that's just what it is,
right?
And that's what I was saying earlier too, Unc. Like, your kids gotta know straight up. Sometimes bad stuff happens, and that's just, it is what it is. That's why I told him, because then if you put this facade over them, now you can't over baby,
right?
Because now you put a facade over them, everything's good, and then when they get older and life hits them in the mouth, they don't know how to deal with it.
Exactly.
So there is there's a fine line between raising your kids to be okay with emotion, and then also teaching them to be tough at the same time.
But it comes from both parents knowing how to speak,
really and truly, in honesty. Like you said, life decisions.
I think sometimes parents just give up.
You're raising another life.
Yeah.
People take it for granted, or they don't see it as serious as.
If you don't teach them to
like, you're raising an adult one day. Like, they're gonna grow up and be a person one day, man. So
to be on their own, are they ready?
You have a hand in that.
Yeah.
So we gotta take it a little more serious, man. And then even back on the mental health side, man. Before we close out, because we done went over.
Yeah, we're way over an hour right now.
But this was good, man. This little story spawned a good conversation.
But it was great. The story it's a mental health. To me, it's a mental health story.
That's what now. When I really broke it down, I'm like,
Yeah.
man, it kind of is like a symbolization for depression. But man, my last closing words before I hand it to you, man, is, man, if you see somebody struggling or if you know somebody struggling, man, reach out and be a listening ear, man.
Right.
Try to be what you would want if you were going through, you know, situation like that. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Even though sometimes you like,
even though it's
ask for help.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, you're like, I'll never ask for help. But at the same time, when somebody sees it and offers for help, swallow that crow, whatever it's called. Eat crow and take the help.
Bro, take the help, man, and reach out, man. If you're not feeling yourself or you know depression, because trust me, I know how it feels, man. I have depression, man, so I battle with it all the time. It's a never-ending battle, it feels like. But trust me, there's ways that you can reach out and get help. Just get help, man. Don't think yourself too prideful, and then on the other end, be there for somebody. You know what I mean? I know sometimes it's weird and awkward, but really check in on people, man.
Especially if you've gone through something and you survived it easy and your life has gotten so much better, whether it was through Jesus Christ or through a counselor or whatever.
Yeah, whichever way you use.
Because when you've gone through it, it's easier for you to see the signs. So offer that help.
Yeah, exactly.
Be the ear.
You never know, man. You simply by just asking somebody if they're okay could save somebody's life.
Most definitely.
So, you know, that's all I got for today, Unc, man. It was a good story.
Yeah, it was, man.
Is there anything you want to say before we close out?
As usual, man, you know, appreciate everything that they do for us, man. You know, comments, likes.
Y'all just stay tuned, man. And, man, thank y'all for everything y'all do. Like you said, if you want to reach out to us, hit us in the email. Hit us in our, DMs on Facebook. Whichever, you know. TikTok, we'll be posting on TikTok, too. So hit us on there if y'all need anything. But thank y'all for joining another exciting episode of Late Night Conversations with Unc and Nephew. And until next week, peace.